Two old men thought no one would stop them until the bikers arrived. The rain fell like 1,000 whispered regrets over the quiet town of Havenbrook. Neon signs flickered weakly through the mist, and the distant rumble of thunder echoed like a warning from the earth itself. In a worn-down office on the edge of town, two men, Silas Grant and Leonard Pierce, leaned over blueprints, smirking as they circled another piece of property to swallow whole. Their empire had been built on broken promises and backroom deals, on the tears of families they'd pushed out into the cold. And tonight, their next target was Rose's Shelter, a modest community haven named after the widow who ran it with grace, grit, and the memory of her late husband, Mateo. What they didn't know was that Mateo hadn't just been Rose's husband. He'd once saved a stranger's life on a rain-soaked highway 20 years ago, a young, bleeding biker named Riker, left for dead after a crash no one stopped for. Mateo pulled him from the wreckage, drove him to the hospital, and stayed with him until he woke up. No fanfare, no expectation, just kindness. Now, Riker led the Iron Vows, a brotherhood of riders bound not by rebellion but by a vow to protect those who can't protect themselves. And when he heard Rose's Shelter was under threat, he remembered that rainy night, remembered the man who'd given him a second chance. The next morning, the shelter's front door creaked open. Rosa stood there, eyes wide, as a line of black motorcycles rolled to a silent stop in the driveway. Leather jackets, weathered faces, but eyes full of quiet resolve. At their head stood Riker, tall, scarred, and steady as stone. In his hand, a manila folder. "You shouldn't have to fight this alone," he said simply. Silas and Leonard had scheduled a final negotiation at the shelter that afternoon, intending to pressure Rosa into signing over the deed. They arrived in tailored suits and expensive shoes, expecting tears, not steel. What they found was a room full of silence and stares. Riker stood in the center, the folder in his hand like a verdict. "Sit down," he said, voice calm but carrying the weight of thunder. Confused but arrogant, Silas scoffed, "Who the hell are you?" "A friend of Mateo's, and a guardian of this place," Riker replied. He opened the folder. Photographs, bank records, signed affidavits from former tenants, former employees, even a contractor who'd been threatened to falsify permits. Everything, every bribe, every forged document, every manipulated lease, laid bare. "Copies of this," Riker said, "have already been delivered to the mayor, 3 major news outlets, and every person you've wronged." Leonard paled. Silas's smirk vanished like smoke. Outside, the Iron Vows stood like sentinels, silent, unmoving, but radiating a presence no amount of money could buy. These weren't thugs, they were witnesses, protectors, and they wouldn't leave until justice was served. For the first time in decades, the two men felt fear, not of lawsuits or prison, but of shame, of being seen for what they truly were. Rosa stepped forward then, not with anger, but with sorrow. "This shelter," she said softly, "is where we feed the hungry, house the lost, and remind people they still matter. My husband believed everyone deserved dignity. I carry that belief every day." She spoke of children who'd found safety here, of veterans who'd slept under its roof when the world turned its back, of the elderly couple who shared their last meal in its kitchen before passing away, hand in hand. Silas looked down at his polished shoes, suddenly ashamed they'd ever walked on this sacred ground. Leonard swallowed hard, his eyes glistening, not with tears of remorse, but with the dawning realization that his legacy wasn't power, it was pain. We'll withdraw the claim, restore the funding, submit to any investigation, Silas stammered. Good, Riker said, because this town, it's got eyes and hearts. They stayed, not because they were forced, but because something inside them cracked open. They listened as Rosa spoke of hope, of community, of second chances. And when they finally left, they didn't strut, they shuffled, humbled. As the sun broke through the clouds, Riker turned to Rosa. "We'll ride by every week," he said. "Not as enforcers, but as neighbors." The Iron Vows mounted their bikes, engines roaring like a chorus of guardians returning to the wind. But before they left, each rider gave Rosa a small salute, not of dominance, but of respect. And in that moment, Havenbrook remembered something it had almost forgotten. True strength isn't in how much you take, it's in what you're willing to protect. Sometimes justice doesn't come in a courtroom. Sometimes it rides in on two wheels with a heart as fierce as its roar. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that kindness and courage still walk among us, please like, share, and subscribe to ACA Story Tales. Your support helps us bring more real-life inspired stories of bravery, second chances, and everyday heroes to screens around the world. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Your voice inspires our next story. Because in a world that often feels broken, stories like this remind us goodness never really leaves. It just waits for someone brave enough to ride in and defend it. Thanks for watching.